maybe we'll do this. So now we don't have to wait for the server to respond. Our built-ins automatically work, but for TypeScript's sake, see, it's actually in Solid. I'm pretty sure loading's in SolidJS Web 2. We always like re-export because of the thing. So yeah, there we go. Sweet. So now I don't have to wait for that whole second. It'll show me something and then it'll come in. So that's useful. So, I mean, this is probably kind of expected by nowadays, but for us, this is new. You introducing async even on SSR doesn't necessarily need a loading boundary. It just means the whole page will wait, for that data. This way we don't have to wait. Now we can do this. But you could picture a world where you want part of the page to wait, like the top header. You're like, you don't care about it, but like you could be like, okay, you know what? Let's get a little bit, let's pretend we actually have an H1 out here, right? And page. All right. But if there was something up here that like we really needed to not share on the page originally, so how about like hello name, and then we were like, okay, let's do this out here. Let's go name equals create memo. So funny because we're faking these timeouts. It would be so much easier just to like new promise and then res, and then this one's going to be a string, right? Promise a string, and then set timeout, and then res 300 milliseconds John. We have to update our imports, so we're doing import create memo from SolidJS. Did that work? Yeah, I definitely still have some. Oh, I don't need to keep on reinstalling it, but I definitely have some HMR timing gotchas I need to get. But what my point is, now when I load the page, it waits for hello John, but doesn't wait for our slower homepage loading, right? So it doesn't like. I mean, we're streaming. This is our streaming protocol. Like when you add loading, you add streaming. So it streams in, right? Can you wrap loading? Oh yeah, I mean, sorry. The reason I didn't do it was because of HMR, but we don't really care, right? Like if you're like, this is not my concern. You're like, loading is not we just need to show our main page. It will handle the loading. We can just go, okay, screw that. Keep this here. Now, obviously right now there's no loading boundary, so it's gonna wait for the whole thing. Parallel fetched, side note, like it's not 3,000 plus. Like if I make some stupid numbers here, we're only gonna wait for 3 seconds, not 6 seconds, right? Like 1, 2, 3, yeah, So the hierarchy isn't at play here. It's waiting for both of them. But in our example here, realistically, if we're just like, we actually only want to guard this. This is where we want to actually put our affordance here. And then we can do like fallback. maybe we have more details here, like we know what we're loading. We're like, we have a component or loading data, right? What's my unexpected token? Oh, it's sweet. And then let's put loading here. You know, I mean, this is your UX designer's concern. This is not your concern too much, right? Like, you were fine if the page just waited the whole time, right? You don't really care. See, and this is part of the model why I think it's so powerful, because where you put the loading boundary doesn't matter, where you fetch the data doesn't matter. You're not passing promises around. You can just like play around with this without like changing the API surface of anything here. I mean, if you wanted to, you could have, I don't know why, but you could have fetched this in the top component and passed it down as a prop. You know what I mean? Like, should we do that? Will that illustrate what I'm talking about more? I don't know. I need to. If in a real app, you would probably like have this in a different file, like an API file. So I wouldn't be copying this stuff around, but like, sure. I mean, let's just fetch these in parallel, and then we need get data here. Move it into our app. Sweet. Okay. So the child now has, what did I call it? Data. Child doesn't even know that it's, I don't know why it has a loading boundary when it doesn't even know if it's data's data, but oh, I keep on reinstalling it. Okay, whatever. Same UX consideration, right? It didn't really matter where you fetch the data. I mean, it's parallel in both places. You pass it through some props. It just happened that your designer wants to put it down here. I mean, good for them, right? We didn't have to change this now to accept promises. Like if this was an existing component, I don't. Does this all make sense? Yes, yeah. I mean, that's how Solid always worked, right? The problem is that we didn't make async first class before, so like, but signals have always been about reads. Async's all about reads. Async is not about like writes. This is like the fundamental disjoint when people like talk, like people focus so much on set state, and it's like no, like it's all about being able to show what's there, right? So yeah. Anyways, for my purposes though, I'm gonna bring this back in here because it doesn't belong up here. I mean, it could, but it doesn't matter, right? It's fetch where you want to fetch, no waterfalls. You know, you get the idea. I'm gonna keep should I keep the loading in here? I mean, I could keep the loading in here. Like, why not? I think it's probably just safe to have the loading, but if the loading's in there, it doesn't matter because nothing triggered it. So we're just never gonna hit that loading boundary, but we can keep it in here just for fun, right? The only reason, like, if we move this inside, then it would do something. We'd have the double cascade loading, right? Because you didn't want to wait for name, so you set a streaming or loading streaming boundary. But for our example, I think we wanted to wait for the hello John before we did it. So again, it doesn't really matter, right? Like everyone's following, right? Okay. So let's keep on going. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I got a lot of inspiration. Like React server components making top level. Like this is, remember PPR? Everyone's like PPR, or not everyone, just certain people were. And I'm like, what? Isn't this just streaming? I mean, it's PPR is like saying like, oh, if this is above or below, like PPR is just this. Like do I? Everyone's like, I hate. Everyone sees this and they're like, I hate loading spinners, loading, even though there's not that many. And they're like, look, there's no initial loading just for that. Yay. I mean, that's the gist of PPR, right? I mean, there's a whole bunch of technology and stuff behind it, but the gist is if I went to this memo and said instead of like hitting a database, I put a cache on the front of it. I was like, oh, actually, if you already have this at the edge, maybe in a KV store, um, sorry, let's make it PPR. Let's make it 0. It's in a cache. Ooh, there we go, PPR. Like uh partial pre-rendering. Um, it's a Next.js feature that uses a whole bunch of infrastructure to ensure. Basically, the idea is that a CDN on the edge um, can cache the static parts and then respond immediately, while the server closer to the database streams through, which is like good, generally speaking, like from an approach. The reason I'm just being kind of funny on the devil's advocate side of things here is because the CDN is going to be faster conceptually, although in practice not always. I actually did a comparison where I showed that it wasn't necessarily, especially because the way like Vercel and like a few of the like providers reuse like Amazon or Cloudflare underneath the hood, which means that they're doing the bounces anyway, so it's like not really winning. Um, but like it's essentially like having a KV cache on the data side, rendering up to the first suspense boundary that matters. So this one, let's say, and then it's like the rest comes that. But if you look at this, this took a second because it went to a server somewhere. So it's like it's not that different than if I just put the thing on the edge and then had an API server. Now you're like, what about all the waterfalls? Well, yeah, waterfalls are real, but the cool thing about the isomorphic model here is this is client side too. So you're used to solving waterfalls. Like that's literally, and the fact that we actually have like the parallel fetching and everything built in helps a lot with this. But like literally the design of apps solve is designed. We have patterns like route loading, hoisting, and all these things that basically solve waterfalls. So like while it is true that you have server waterfalls, or because you're farther from your database and that makes them slower, you shouldn't have server waterfalls at all. Like it was funny. There was a campaign for a while from like the Vercel guys. Like I call it a campaign, but it wasn't like an official one. But they're like all sitting there like on X being like 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 almost like server waterfalls and like the like CSI Miami shades. You know what I mean? Like as if they were a good thing. No, they are waterfalls. No matter how small or big, are never a good thing. It's like we've made them like okay, essentially. But I mean, if you get to a point where that's the problem you're solving, then focus on coming up with a good solution for that problem rather than actually convoluting the whole complexity of the whole system just to get around that. It's similar. We've been working on stuff a lot at the same time. Svelte had a big influence on our API design, and then we kind of in turn back like this like non-blocking fetching thing was not in the original Svelte because their stuff's are tied to the component in the compiler. Ours is built into the runtime. So it's a little different. It's like our signals are actually async, where in Svelte, it's like they have special component compilation that basically does similar thing. The biggest difference between the two systems right now is and this can change in Svelte in the future and probably will, is that they don't have the same transition guarantees that React does and Solid does to prevent certain types of race conditions, and their stuff isn't as queryable, right? We haven't talked about is pending or latest. They have eager, which is like our latest, but they haven't. Our async conceptual tuple, where we have the future and the past, is actually askable at anywhere along the whole reactive graph. So it's like it's very first class, where the Svelte model has eager, as I mentioned, but and you can use eager to compare against actual to actually get the same sort of like question asking. You can go like, does eager count equal count essentially, and then you kind of but we've kind of made this a first class citizen, and actually because the coordination's through the reactor graph, we aren't kind of restricted by any kind of component boundary concept. Yeah, well, see, here was the problem I was having here. It's like we we could make create async, but then what the hell do you what if what if sorry, let's give me an example. What if I mean what if what if this is no longer a memo? What if you want it to be a signal? Right? Right? I mean, you could derive it, obviously, but I just started thinking, I was like, like, what if we wanted to be like data, set data? Now, this is fine, but button on click equals set data. I mean, I could have made a counter d plus 1. Ironically, though, I actually, you know what? I think given the UI shape, and this is a funny thing, people always point to me about edge cases, but that they're worried about with this model. But the truth of the matter is, it builds itself because you're like, why would you have the button to increment if you before you loaded the section in? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is kind of common sense here, right? The question is, right? So the interesting thing I'm finding is that it's swallowing the first couple clicks I'm hitting, which I'm not actually sure why. Is it just not hydrated yet and it's like really slow on here? That, but then if that was the case, the hydration replay should be working. Anyways, you get the idea. So I can ask any signal that returns a promise if it's pending. You can ask any signal and any downstream signal of it if it's pending. You can make this and then be like, const double memo. I don't know why create memo deleted itself, but and then go like, oh, I'm data times 2, and notice no null check here, right? Because it's still access a number. We'll take care of it. You can ask double if it's pending. It'll know. Yeah. Sorry, I'm catching with chat. Yeah. No, I think it's by design. And this is like the craziest thing I'm probably gonna say, but you know how I don't like is signal. I'm classic opponent of this. I want any function to be a function. This mental model, which might be completely crazy, is like I don't want you to ask. I want it is async. The question is, am I now or am I in the future? That's the only question I want you to ask. Right? Is the pending? What's my latest value? I don't want you to worry about the propagation change of how many promises chained into this promise that caused this, and when this, just, do I have the value or don't I have the value? Like, and if I'm not done, like I don't have the full value, what do I got so far? Like, those are the kind of questions. No, as I said in the announcement, we like I literally and people have been following the stream, I literally just like drop this the last couple days. The stuff will funnel out of the ecosystem as it goes. There's people working on Solid Start that, but this is beta. Like this is like we're getting early feedback from libraries. We need to just I at one point I would have done this as an alpha, but the truth of the matter is we spent so much time consolidating the AI, or sorry, the API, and we move. And I feel like these days, because of the interactivity we have, you know, between communities, like Discord, because of just like the way we build, we just move, and AI, we just move so much faster that it's not. I would have released alpha for like this week and then switched to beta next week. Why do that? Well, here's the thing. Have a timeout for loading to not show the loading fallback for some time and just hold the past. Well, if you haven't seen this thing, there's a reason I called it suspense, loading, not suspense. We never go back to fallback in this model, ever. Never, 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 ever go back to fallback. This example is a little weird because the source is async and then went down. But let's pretend that double is now actually our API, right? So we're gonna go get double. So now we get value and we're gonna do v times 2, right? And now instead, this is just a counter. The counter. I didn't mean to do that. I just trying to write count, but that's cute. Set count. And now double is get double count. Okay, sweet. And then now we set count to increment. And now this is showing double count. Okay. So now, and I'll show you something too. See how we didn't go back? I'll put count in here too. 0, 0, 1, 2. So times 2 equals that. Sweet. Looks good. All right, cool. Yeah, I haven't added suspense list yet. Yeah. Yeah. This is why this is the whole joke of the release. Um the whole joke of the release of this suspense being over is this is different. This is why I renamed it, because this is a async. When I say async first in React Brain, this means everything's a transition. Yeah, yes. But you can ask, this is why the whole question people are asking about this, because it's like, what if you want to show stuff? Well, the problem is you needed different affordances anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually the you could say that, oh, I'm okay going back to loading every freaking time, but this is jarring. And usually your designer, as I was mentioning earlier, is just like moving the thing around and going, okay, like how does this like if I want to show that it's pending, I mean, what I want to do? What's pending? Span. Can I apply CSS to the span? Closing bracket. Okay. Can I do something like style? Not spell check. Style. Opacity. My favorite gimmick is pending. Is pending count. I guess I could ask on double too. It doesn't really matter. 0.5. Otherwise 1. Yeah, something like that. There we go. Grays out temporarily while it's loading. I can hit it like 4 times and then it'll just jump to the last. Yeah. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, yeah. The loading semantics and being able to do stuff in the background make it a little bit special. But yes, I imagine you can create that experience if you wanted to. We haven't actually done an official release. People have made branches where they have it working, but the oh yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. There's so many APIs here. You can also call refresh. Yeah, yeah. I feel like I've covered this in previous streams, which I understand not everyone watches every one of my streams because they're terribly long. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it was there. If you want, like, there, it's good to kind of start from this like basic example to work out because when you get to the end of the chain, it's still very simple, but you might not understand how we got there. You know what I mean? Like the final like Strello type demo or like the to do MVC with the affordances that I showed lower on the earlier on this thing has a lot of behavior. Like, look, the disabled is pending. If when I was showing this thing and I was showing how like this drop down works, it was just kind of leveraging that. Um, but I wanted to push some boundaries on the stream. I wanted to try some stuff that I haven't tried yet. So how are they should one of the beautiful things, and you can ask anyone who's been involved in this, hand stack query used to just wrap create resource. The fact that our primitives are so encoded with behavior made it really easy. So like I remember the first time it happened, and for me this was kind of obvious that this would happen, but it shocked the people actually making the integration. They literally just went and wrapped create resource with Tanstack's query invalidation logic essentially, and then they just took a solid start app and they just slotted it into a component, middle of the tree, whatever, nothing fancy, not doing hoisted preload or any of that. They just stick in the tree, and everything just worked. Streaming automatically worked. Data serialization automatically worked. Every piece of it just worked out of the box. Invalidation, like they literally didn't have to do anything special. There's no like, oh, is this suspense mode? Oh, how do I handle the serialization string? It literally just worked. And this is going to be, I imagine, no different than that. They'll have to be like, if they have a dot loading thing, they're gonna have to like do the is pending themselves inside to mirror the APIs, just like they were calling the loading signal before in the resource. Like there's wrapper pieces, but because the system is so consistent, it doesn't. Tanstack query becomes exactly what Tanstack query is, like a caching invalidation layer over async. Like it's not their worry. We make sure that all async works properly. They just give a nice interface and some caching. I hope that answers the question. Like this is such a good way to approach this. This is why it's like some people, it was crazy that React never had a data fetching answer until recently, because it was like the whole ecosystem had to kind of like guess or work their way around this. When the answer is like, especially this simple, when it's like, just make a computation like a memo and pass it an async function, like done. Like serialization is automatic. I need it for hydration. I mean, we could talk about ways of opting out or doing other things, but yeah, it's automatic. And actually, we have modes, which are one of the cool things we should probably try today. Yes, let's get there. Um, so, okay, let's not worry about double count. Do we care about double count? Let's skip back a bit, because what I really want to do is do. I'm gonna undo all this derived stuff and go back to just get in the data and put in the data on the screen. Are we there? Yeah, we have data on the screen actually. Maybe I should. Yeah. all the way back to me just getting the data and putting it on the screen. What's before that? No. Okay, I'm cool with this. Data on the screen. Okay, let's continue. So what's fun? Know what's fun? Async iterators. Those are fun. I actually almost want to like use Gemini to do this because I this is my lazy AI move. Can you write a little JS async iterator that yields a value every second up to 10 times? Yeah, let's do that. Sweet. So much easier. Second counter. Beautiful. Let's do this. So now let me see what this looks like. All right. So do I just get data this? Oh yeah, I do. Sweet. Okay. Now we have a stream that goes up to 10. Okay, sweet. Okay. So let's see what this does. Unsurprising to any of you guys, we never... Oh, it didn't work. It worked. Okay, so what happened? When I reloaded, it stopped working. Uh-huh. Interesting. So it worked client side, it didn't work server side. We have a bug here. Okay. So let's look at what we were actually getting here. Network. Let's see if it's an SSR problem or if it's actually it might be cleaner to do this in a different preview window. Okay. Yeah, let's see what's going on. Let's look at our page because the counter you saw proves that it works in the client. If you have an async iterator and you subscribe to it in the client, then no big surprise. It just counts up like that. It's like a promise, but now we have a stream. And you actually set the load data. So what it does is it actually, until it has its initial value, it's loading like a promise, but then afterwards it just streams the data in. But the question is, what's going on here? Hydration completed with one unclaimed server rendered node. Interesting. Yeah, so there's a hydration mismatch. I haven't tested this much yet, which is interesting. It's also complaining that a signal was written to in a known scope, which means that the guard around projections is not working properly. I think that might be an older error. Let's see what happens when it drops. Interesting. Okay. So there's some warnings that have some false positives. Let's look at what the actual HTML we get response is. Yeah. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 return void. I love Laravel. This is so freaking cool. So it's not working, obviously, but this is something I wanted to try. Because what this does, if you understand, is it starts. Yeah, the Stack Blitz is pretty good about handling the save stuff. Yeah, so there's a bug, and I'm gonna work on fixing this. But for people not quite following what this is doing, it's this async iterator function is on the server during SSR initially. So it's actually streaming the data results over the HTML, we have suspense, which is one mechanism for doing boundaries, but we can also data stream async iterators here. So what's cool about this is for cases where like the whole stream is coming from the server, we don't have to wait till the client gets the JavaScript, hydrate, reconnect, then pull the data. We can literally just stream it along. And there's lots of cases like, say, if we ever get, something like server components through server functions, which I have some cool ideas there, just side note. We could just stream the response straight in the exact same way. Now, there's some hydration concerns, but I believe I've solved them, although how buggy this is might be an issue. But the general gist is, if we have data from the server, we can stream it through. And one of the cool things we can do, so the SSR is right, the hydration's wrong, which means I'm going to try something that might be cool. We have something called SSR source, and we had this in Solid 1.0, right? Because we use stuff like initial or server. Basically, we say, like, if you had something like Astro, we'd say initial, so it'd use the initial value that it got, and then like our undefined here. So like it's a lot of islands frameworks, you do the fetching up front and then you pass the data. And that way, when it initialized on the client, it doesn't do the fetch. It just like, we already handled the fetch deduplication for client server, but in this case, it doesn't do the fetch on the client or the server initially when you set SSR source to initial. And it only starts doing fetching like on update. Server is the default, which is what we just saw, where it's going to serialize on the server and not refetch on the client, and it'll do the whole stream if you let it. But we have a couple new modes: hybrid and client. Now, what does hybrid do? Hybrid, which is also not working, but I can show you here what it does, because hopefully we'll see the serialization. What hybrid does, yeah, we're not going to see it very clearly. What hybrid does, if it worked, and as I said, unfortunately, the reason I had a suspicion that some of this stuff won't work. I have a bunch of tests written by AI that says it works, but you put the pedal to the actual metal, you'll find that there's actual bugs in this stuff. I haven't been able to test it myself, which is why I knew there'd be a risk of this. But what hybrid does is it takes the first value of the stream on the server, serializes the promise to handle the initial suspense, and then on the client it triggers the fetch and like resumes the stream from the client. So like basically, like pretend you have convex and you're fetching some data. You have a stream, essentially. You have a subscription web, and what you do is you could basically feed it in a single way in your app code, which we showed here. You can just like put in a memo or whatever. And then what will happen is it will get that first query on the server, serialize it, handle the async, give you the SSR experience, do that whole thing. And automatically, when it starts up on the client, create the connection on the query again, and then stream any further values from the client connection, just by simply wiring in the stream this way, right? Unfortunately, this isn't working quite yet, but this will be probably my next thing on the list of bug fixes. But this is the API thing. The last mode, client, client will work because there's no hydration mismatch. What happens with the client is that it takes the initial value and then it only runs it on the client, right? Which is pretty freaking cool, right? Because it means that it doesn't even run this function on the server at all, which means that I think you guys are seeing where I'm getting here. What if you have to read something from local storage, right? You've all played the like on or empty effects array use effect on mount game, where you're like, okay, I wait till hydration finishes, and then when hydration is finished, go apply the change, right? SSR source client is basically just that. What about taking the initial value from the build time and also fetching on the server? I don't even know what that means. I'm just like, let me process it. The question is, and this is actually a bit like someone was asking me about getting the initial value. You should model it slightly differently. Something is only considered settled if it's actually been settled. The question is like, what do you want to flush? What you're suggesting is you want to flush immediately and then fetch on the server to replace that. I don't think you can do that with a single primitive here, because from Solid's perspective, the value is only ever settled when it's been settled. And if you create it as both having a settled value and unsettled at the same time, it'll consider it unsettled, which means that if you had the initial cache value and the server, it's going to wait for the fetching value, for all its intensive purposes. You could do this, I think, but it's a little bit more complicated. It's also weird as hell. I'm just going to point this out here. Like, when you do a change, you perform an action, then you expect stuff to change. It's very weird to load a page and then have it kind of like, not like load in more stuff, but kind of like change what's in front of you. Like when you start navigating or doing stuff, you start like questioning, like, should I wait a second? Like, is it actually done? Dan Abramoff actually had like a great thing about why he hates stale revalidate, like that auto revalidates. Like, it's one thing to have like an affordance that's like, hey, you're out of date, you should update. But like, unless you're like already put people in a mindset that they're like connected to a WebSocket, there's like a trust issue with not knowing when stuff is ready or fixed. I'm pretty sure you can model this with that, but it's also a weird pattern. So there's no way that we make that like a default thing. Can the second argument be a server source? Second argument. Yes, but yes. Okay. Maybe that's more what you're asking. Yes. This is what I meant by being like two primitives. Yes. The second argument could be, but not another memo, because it wouldn't wait properly. It'd have to be something that we knew for sure was resolved. You're basically like forcing the waterfall, right? So yes, there is a world where you could guard this and then have the server, like using our own primitives, like basically don't get to here until that data is ready, and then feed that data into the initial value, and then have the yes. So yes, that's exactly how you'd model it. Yes. Okay. If this wasn't broken, we would get to what I wanted to show, what I wanted to try next. I still have a couple other examples I want to try. So, but this is a memo, so it is just a sequence, which means that it does one at a time. Now, how do we make this into a list? I guess because I have the client side, I can answer that question. Well, make it into a list yourself. Previous. Let me think about this. Yeah, where's the Gemini code? Actually, I can probably figure this out without relying on AI too hard. But like, if you pretend that this is on the server, then you could just do like async function. Like, the server is sending the stream, but you want to accumulate. Then you have like, we can do we can do something here, right? We could do something like for what, I always get the consume side. Is it for await? Okay, let's do something like this. For await of get data. Yield. All right, and then I just need to const accumulator equals array, and then accum dot push value yield accumulator, essentially. Actually, this is the same value, so that's not really useful. We should do it more like let accumulator and then be like probably something like accumulator value. Is that right? Did I do this? Sorry, it's funny that I must have like a JS error or something for it to. I don't see how this could possibly if I'm yielding. What am I doing wrong? Like if I'm yielding uh an array. Yeah, I don't know what to call it because it only applies to SSR. Client is like the opt-out. Oh, yeah, I'm being dumb. Yeah, thank you. There we go. Okay. Yeah, you know, since we have the client side, I mean, this is less fun, but we can definitely we can definitely do part of the demo I wanted to do, even though I wanted it to stream from the server. Thank you for this option at least working. Okay, do you know what the problem with this is? Or you could push and equals false. Yeah, exactly. You guys know how this works. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the only problem with this, and and this would have been so much more impressive if I had the server part working. The problem with this is, and you might consider this a small problem, but let's change this from yield I to yield like something more substantial, like ID I. Okay, now this isn't going to render anything because we're trying to render objects. But what we could do is inside here put like a for component, right? And then say for each data, and for now I'm just going to make it a div. And sorry, what's my val? Let's use val, whatever. Let's put val in here. Oh, right, val.id. Sweet. Okay, you see where we're going with this, right? So if this was working on the server, that's kind of cool. We're like streaming in like in order, which is kind of cool. Now, let's put 4 in here. Now, the problem with this is if I turn on paint rendering, what you're gonna see is we're gonna re-render the whole list, right? I mean, I guess these are primitive values. We could, you know, we could, but like, I guess they're objects, and because our accumulator is keeping the previous value, it's not bad. But so actually, this is actually not that bad. It is, but it's still we're triggering the memo, is what I'm getting at. Like we're triggering the for each, and it's gonna do reconciliation of the whole list every single time, right? Because it's gonna go, oh, I mean, they're the same value. It's fine, but it's gonna reconcile the whole list. So what if we don't want to do that? Well, we might want a projection instead of a memo. a projection is a derived store. So we can also derive a store from the server from the same kind of way. And instead of doing this, we could get the previous state, which is the store itself. We're going to define it by array, and we're going to go s.push value, and then we're going to yield the control back. And if why does it? Oh, right, because it's an array of never. We want it to be an array of ID number, I think. Does this even work still? What have I broke? I killed the what am I missing here? It's like a compilation error that I'm probably like killing something. No, something here is, maybe it's the way I'm using array. Sometimes inside JSX, this stuff doesn't like. Can I do this? Because now data is an array, a read-only array of ID number. That looks good. Can we run dev? What is it doing? I mean, this isn't. I mean, but I don't think that's what the problem is. Where it was. Okay. Lovely. Okay, so now we have a store. Store should be reading from get data, and it should be pushing itself in, which then should be adding it to 4. Okay, let's do some logs to figure out why this isn't working. Yeah, the problem is it's not only for that. Like, this is the old Boolean problem. There's 4 different mutually exclusive options. So if we add a client only true, do we make each other mode like a different mode too? It doesn't make sense. So, okay, what are we doing wrong here? Because what I was really excited when I get the demo working, I'm hoping it's going to be pretty sweet, is we actually have a patch format for this. So projections on the server can render just the changes that you do, like this push mutation, over the wire. So you can start streaming data from the server and actually describe the UI like pushing to an array without like resending all the data on each step over the wire, the server, and then the client will pick it up, the patches. No, our projections, the mapping is always first. It's the same as a memo. It should be identical. Um, but yeah, let's see console.log value. Yeah, so it sees the initial 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know why there's a. Oh, wait. What? Why did it suddenly start working? What? I am so confused. It was like working there for a second. Maybe like I should do this in. Realistically, I should do this in the non, like, because we've already confirmed that the SSR doesn't work. If I just move this to the non SSR example to actually try and do this, then we won't be hitting as many issues here. The SSR example obviously is obviously the 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 piece de resistance, so to speak. But if we just moved our logic here and essentially this over to here, we shouldn't be hitting the SSR bugs that I haven't solved yet. We should be able to just do the example anyway. Oh, right. Oops. I don't want to update the base template. I want to fork it. Okay. Then now all the imports. All right, sweet. Okay, and this now this SSR client doesn't do anything because it's client side already. Yeah, okay, so the client side stuff works. It's just the server side stuff doesn't work properly. Okay, so already pretty cool, but obviously the serialization format would have been really cool to see. I mean, we can still see if we can see this just serialization format. If I remove this, obviously it's not going to work properly, but yeah, why is it doing it twice? That's an interesting one. Oh, it's because do you know why it is? Because cancellation, the request is still, yeah, this is one of the fun things. That's a very good point. Request cancellation over the wire. Like it'll be done when it's done, but it's not. The iterator is going to run to its completion here right now. But what I wanted to show, hopefully we can see this over the network tab when we pop this into its own preview tab, is the wire format, which is pretty cool. Network. Show me. Yeah, there we go. Actually, I suppose I could also just look at the script tags being emitted at the bottom of the page. Yeah, this is the wire format. I mean, it's not the most compact, but what you're seeing here is that push tells it to set a value at this index and update the length of the thing. So it has to it ends up instructing it like this would also work if it was like inserting stuff at the top, the bottom, the middle. It basically has to encode the instructions. So the first flush here actually sends the ID one, like the initial array value, right? But then the rest of them send the instructions on how to patch or mutate the array. Yeah. So anyway, does the projection function need to be async generator in this case? Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's going to wait for the whole thing to finish. If we didn't have yields in the middle, it's going to, if it's just a promise, it's not done till the whole thing's done, which could be your intention, but then you don't need this. But if you want to say flush the first value and then continue to stream the rest, you need it to be a generator. We use a proxy to capture the changes, and yeah, so we just basically replay the proxy changes. We don't even have to like do a diff, because the server has a proxy. When it calls traps, those traps basically get recorded as instructions. Really cool. When are you guys starting to see how all the pieces actually come together here? This obviously just works the easy way, but this still has a bit of a problem. It's not the worst problem, but like because data is iterating over this list, this is, even though now we're not reevaluating the whole memo, so to speak, we are still triggering each array index. So in Solid, we actually have a new control flow. In Solid 2.0, repeat. And we can change this one to be data.length. And it's just going to have index here because it actually has no idea. We don't pass the data to it. We just go repeat count. And then let me put repeat in here, repeat. And then count, and then I, which is simply going to be data I.id. Beautiful. And what's beautiful about this is, I mean, we could show this probably with a console log, but not completely because of internals. Because we never actually passed the data to this, we don't, this is not designed to do data diffing. This is designed to basically have a fixed index. So what this does is, in our ideal world, which I can't show, but I showed the patch format, is we start our stream on the server. We encode the patch, we serialize the initial value, we encode the patched updates over the wire, which then get applied, and because the patches are fine-grained, continue into our repeat component, which then only on new entry, say, adds one of these items, or on a data change, just updates the like, if you look at this, doesn't have to rerun on a data change. Like if I was just like changing something at like the ID value, it only needs to run this subscription. And there's no there's no actual reconcile here, right? Because for projections to reconcile, you have to like call reconcile, or you have to return a value. We're yielding nothing. We're not returning a value. This is actually end-to-end fine-grained updates without any diffing. So like as I said, the server stream adds each change, push, edit, whatever the hell we wanted it to do, mutate here. This only doesn't diff against a current list. Repeat doesn't even know there is a list. And then only the things that act like, so like when length changes, then we have to add an entry here. When data changes, then we just update the fine-grained updates. So yeah, this is fine-grained end-to-end streaming. No, okay, yeah. It'd be a lot more impressive if it actually worked. Yeah. Maximum efficiency. Well, do you know why maximum efficiency is important? Like, I guess the funniest thing is, like, are we, like, I'm not suggesting that people definitely solve problems this way. If there's a dedicated layer that's going to handle the transport, going to handle the diffing, going to handle that stuff for you, then do it. But what's interesting here is that with just like fundamental building blocks and doing like the dumb thing, right? Like just like wiring it into some UI. I mean, I guess you need to know a bit about async iterators to understand this. But like you get this incredible power essentially, like that. Like I'm still working out the combinatorics of like how like I said, I'm not sure how someone would even necessarily use this, but it's interesting. Um, right, like the case, like what do you want to use repeat for? Picture this as a chat. Being able to render large lists without any diffing is huge, right? Now, different chats have different solutions to this. But when I see this, like, doesn't AI become like the first thing that comes to your mind, like LLMs? Like having like these streamed data sources that just work. Do you know what I mean? Like this is just native behavior. Now, like I'm just leveraging the fact that async iterators exist. Now, obviously, if there's like conversion from observable or whatever, you can do whatever the hell you want. You know, this as long as you can present the right interface here. This kind of stuff is kind of sort of living outside this. Like this is the where the logic is. Like this lives kind of outside the system. Maybe this is like an observable, and then you just subscribe to it here, and then you know you could do some fun stuff here. Like we could say lazy true. So like it's like we could like do something like, I mean, it's not going to make a difference here, but if we say lazy true here, lazy should be an option on this one. Interesting, it's not. It's on memo. Maybe I guess lazy on, I'm trying to think of how lazy would work on, it should still be able to work. I'll look into that. But I'm pretty sure I just didn't expose the option by accident. Like you could basically make a service that connects to a stream only when people are listening to it, right? You just have to, all you have to do is in here, along with your code to do the actual work, you know, add like an on cleanup to kill this subscription, or, you know, build something into your stream. There's like a cancel protocol on async iterators, build something into it, because we do call the cancel at the end when we interrupt it or do stuff. So like there's like a whole, because we're like leveraging these platform primitives for like the basic mechanics here, and our only job is really to convert them into signals. Like the door of what's possible is just, I don't even know what people will do with this. Does this also work for deep mutations? Yes, because we proxy traps. We make a deep proxy. We can describe it as a deep mutation. Yes. That's the only way I would accept this. Is you need to be able to write something and be able to perform any possible mutation on it, like you would on the server, and make sure that the client can mirror it. So yes. Okay. Maybe enough of this example. I have another idea that I wanted to try. This one, mixed bag. Looks like the client side stuff works good. Looks like the server hydration stuff needs some work. We successfully, I should be keeping a list of issues because we've successfully broken Solid 2.0 beta a few times now, but hopefully the concept travels. This seems like a very powerful area. So I'm gonna make a little note on this one. This one is this one actually works, doesn't it? This one actually isn't the problem, right? The problem is actually this one. So what do I want to call it? It's our template, broken iterators. Okay, cool. This cute one actually, we didn't find any bugs on this. This one actually works lovely. Okay, so I'm just gonna call this iterators for now, so we can come back to it, so I can come back to it, think about it. Okay, yeah, save. Okay. Now dashboard. Let's make another template fork. I'm almost scared to do this one, but I think this one I want to do with, I think we have to do it with SSR. But I had an idea. What if we tried to recreate Astro on stream right now? Let's, I mean, we don't have a partial, we don't have an official partial hydration solution, but can we just use Solid's primitives to remake partial hydration from scratch just for fun? Seems like a complicated thing, but like maybe it's worth a shot, right? Yeah, I mean that's how SetStore works. SetStore has a mutable API, but because you're not calling setters on the server, or you shouldn't be, because you're not going to call them during rendering because we warn you about that. Remember, there's that whole like don't try to set in a known scope. Um, and event handlers don't happen until on the client. Um, we just don't need to worry about it there. Maybe you could acquired by Cloudflare. I mean, at this point, but no, I'm very happy with Sentry. Let's and we're not a company to acquire it. Maybe that's been my problem. Maybe we haven't positioned ourselves right. Maybe if I like made Solid into like a tan stack and like there's like this conceptual company thing. We've been very open source, or well, kind of like Vue. The Vue community's always been like that too, and even Svelte as well. But it seems like the ones who've kind of positioned themselves as if they were a company, or are kind of like um, like Nuxt, like it causes a different kind of conversation, right? Because I guess Nuxt Labs was an actual company that got acquired, maybe. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like we've never been very strong on like in that sort of branding. Forgive me, I don't even know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like Astro was an actual company that raised, right? So maybe that's the problem. I was like, what the hell are we gonna sell? But maybe that's a tomorrow problem. Okay, let's fork this. Aren't you the CEO? Some people approach me on this seriously. It's funny. Okay, so how would we do this? Like just like conceptually, how would we do this? Well, the server rendering would be our app. Okay, now I don't care about most of this crap, right? We don't need pages, we need islands. So let's clear out main. Let's clear out the nav. Um, I guess our first goal is going to be, can we even just not, can we render from the server and not hydrate from the head, right? Like, so I guess that's the easiest thing, right? So I think what we need here is the hydration component. I mean, actually, and then we'll do something like ID app, maybe. And then I'm going to just stick home in this. What? I don't even understand what this error is. Oh, it's fail. Okay. Sorry. Tried to import it from some weird place. Okay. But that doesn't, I'm gonna have to add a counter to home or something so we can prove that it's actually alive. This doesn't actually prove anything because sure, it was able to server render it, but let's go entry client and then hydrate, um, maybe, I guess we need a second thing, right? We need like some kind of like, maybe like a div, and we'll do something like ID equals app. And then now when we're on entry server, we can do like doc or client, we can do document.get element by ID app. Okay. Promise you it's there. Um, and then we need to do one more thing to match it up. We need to pass a render ID of app, which should match our hydration ID. This is how we do that. And then in our home, just so that we can sanity check that this actually works, we're going to add some reactivity. Count, set count, equals create signal 0, and then button count. And then on click equals set count +1. Looks good. I don't know why HMR is not working. Okay, so it's dead. What? Why is it dead? Hydrogen mischat. Unable to find app notes for hydration app 0. Oh, okay. So there is a little bit of matching I need to do here. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, I don't want to hydrate the app, right? I want to hydrate silly me. I want to hydrate home. Sorry. It's because it routes home. I mean, this isn't a route anymore. It's more like an island. All right. Let me see if that works. Brush. No hydration error. Interesting. As I said, this is one of those things that should work, but I'm not 100% sure that it will work. I mean, we can do some, because basically this now that this entry server is stuff is essentially only on the server, and then we should, by setting an ID for hydration for app div ID, we should be serializing the right IDs on both sides. So let's quickly look at what our application looks like in a window. As I said, I had a feeling this stuff might not work exactly right yet, but this is the concept behind it. So div, okay, so that's our problem. Data HK should be app 1 and it's not. That's it's just not actually working. How does stuff like this ever pass tests? Beats me. Let me make sure that I have the latest version of Solid, just to sanity check that it's not because I'm on beta 0. No, I am on beta 1. What? Well, that's also unfortunate, because what's supposed to happen, well, do you know what I do? I wonder if it's the hydration bypass. Do you know what it is? I bet you it's the hydration bypass. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Because the problem right now is I think if it's like I'm already hydrating, it kind of like ignores the whole case, right? Because like if we were actually doing this properly, we don't want all those extra hydration IDs in the on our page. So we actually want to be like, look, actually guys, no hydration this thing. Again, why you I'm gonna have to do something about that. No hydration. And then we're gonna wrap the whole thing in no hydration. And what this does is turns off the ID gen. Now, hopefully that will fix the shape of our HTML. Yeah, there we go. See, top of the document, no hydration IDs. It starts here in main where we have app 0, which isn't going to work right now because we're going to get a hydration mismatch because there's no actual app 0. So I need to do a little bit of work here, but it should be minimal. Hopefully I won't have to do this in the future, but what we should be able to do is, I think if this creates this and this is home and that's under app 0, then I wonder if it's because, oh, it's like this is screwing it up. It's more like, obviously I can just add the 0 to the end of the ID, but I think what's actually happening here is I should do this. ID equals app. What are we doing here? No, that made no difference. It is actually app 0. It's appending it. Okay, no problem. Simple fix for that. App 0. Maybe not. Would it be really interesting to see? This is why you don't use the AI, folks. Yeah, it's fine. I needed to. All right. So the question is, what is happening here? We load the home on the client. The first get next element calls what we want to see. So let's see what happens as it hydrates. Step into this. Step in. I need to turn off source maps. Absolutely frustrating in this case. How do I turn off source maps? Bam. Thank you. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, get next element. Presto. You're not gonna let me step into it? This is so annoying. It's like decided that I get why they do this. It's because they want to like filter the framework stuff out, but I actually want to go into the framework. Oh, this is so annoying. It's fine. I can get in here. Let's remove this from the ignore list. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's try this again. Step in. Thank you. Getting it. What key are we getting? So first of all, is hydrating true? Now, what key are we getting? Our key equals get hydration key, which is give me the key. Yeah. Format ID equals 0. So it is getting the ID. Okay, sweet. Okay, let's pop out. So it didn't find the template. What's in the registry? Nothing's in the registry. Ooh. Ooh, that's interesting. Why is there nothing in the registry? Look at the hydrate call. Gather. Refresh. Let's actually go into here when we actually do the gathering. What? Why isn't gathered being called? It's literally not calling gather. Okay. That's odd. That's very, very odd. Okay. So you guys are like, have no clue what I'm doing right now, but this one I had more confidence that I'd be able to do. That's why I'm I'm looking into this. So hydrate. It's actually in here, actually, probably, yeah, hydrate, okay. Gather is never being called. No, gather hydratable, what? Oh, yeah, the we export it as an API, but we also have this. Okay, so let's do this. Gather hydrated options, rent. Okay, so this should be just app. Okay, so that's my first bug here. The render ID being app is correct. The problem is that um the problem's on the other side. Okay, so just wanted to make sure that it was not working. Okay, the render ID app. So now let's go in here. Get all the hydrations. How many templates did we get? Node list. Beautiful. Now turn that node list into something. And share config registry. It's saying that it found no. Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is a structural problem. I've never done this before, so I didn't think about this. Yeah, okay. It's the opposite problem. I've been trying to solve this backwards. Home. No, this isn't where this belongs. This belongs here. It belongs outside. There, hydrating. Not a bug. Not a bug. It's hydrating. Okay. Sweet. My bad. Okay. So essentially now if we let's pop this out into another page and we look at our elements, you'll see that there's no hydration IDs on any of this like outer stuff, like head, body, like none of these, some solid stuff. And we're actually just hydrating from here, and it just works. Okay, so we kind of made an island. It's not the problem is if I look at the source code, I see my home component. I mean, the funny thing about this is I actually didn't ship any of the JavaScript for the app. Yeah, so I guess I kind of did do that, but I mean, I feel like I can do better than this. I guess, I mean, essentially this is the key, right? All I'd have to do is um I mean all I would have to do is make my wrapper, like instead of using main ID, just like make my islands create their own elements with IDs that I could search, and then do my own, grab all islands and then call hydrate on them, and then all it, right, I know what I'm missing. I need the right now. The reason I can load the code is because um I mean, obviously that's obvious, but on the client side, I literally know the code to call for hydrate, right? So how do I do this a bit more dynamically, right? Because realistically, like if you pretend like this is something that we want to search for, like instead of main, this is like, I don't know, like island ID thing. We would also need a way of getting the code on there, right? So, I mean, should we just like make a helper? Like, let's just kind of think this out. Island, and then our island is gonna be essentially, it's gonna need a component. I'll do a component with a cap. I mean, I guess we would do props, right? So, but I'm just trying to like think out loud. We need a component. And we need an ID. Yeah, okay. So just I think we can just do something like island solid island and then we could do something like props.id. Now obviously it's complaining because there's no clue what a solid island is, but I gave it the TypeScript, but I could do like props.id and then I could do props.component. Now this isn't a dynamic component, but it doesn't need to be. And then I can make this also props.id, right? And then, yeah, that looks right. And then, how do I tell it what to lazy load? Okay, cool. How about if we, well, let's actually make sure this still works, right? Because we're essentially just gonna do island, and then we're gonna say ID equals app and component equals home and ta-da, right? That's kind of right. Hopefully, does that work? Did I completely break everything? No, it still works. Let's make sure, let's sanity check that we have the right solid island ID app 0. Okay. Yeah, that still seems to work. So like, okay, so that's kind of cool. Then what else do we need? We on the server, I think realistically, we're not going to know about home. Like, I mean, what we could do, what if we made, let's see here, let's import lazy. So if we did something like const home equals lazy. Let's see if we do this. Sorry, import, obviously. All right, so let me make that lazy. And then now home's a lazy component. That's good. So that's like a separate bundle. And then here, what we could do is on our island, we could do something like URL equals props.component.module URL, I think. And if I did that right, we could have a URL to where the code is for it. Lazy has preload, which is cool, but I've also added URL capabilities to it because we pass the manifest through. So we actually know. The only thing that's weird about this is it's not giving me, it's giving me like, I don't think it's giving me, it's not giving me the transformed URL, I don't think, which is what I was expecting it to do, which is a little bit awkward. We should be getting the transformed URL here. So I think, but you could conceptually see what you'd have to do here, right? Because then on the client, what we do, let me sanity check this still does it still hydrate? No, it doesn't. Why doesn't it hydrate? It doesn't hydrate because it's not discovering. It's kind of funny. It's because we're in a half state. But I don't think this will work quite yet. But because what we need to do is change the client entry instead of like importing directly from home, but to do like a something like query selector. Sorry, document dot query selector all. Like what's the tag name here? I'm trying to think here. It's like what they call it, solid island. And then so let's see if that does anything. Const islands equal console dot log islands sanity check. Solid island app, beautiful. And then yeah, so the URL isn't correct, probably. But what we want to do is essentially this gives me a node list. Can I use for each on a node list? I can't remember. Islands.forEach node, and then we do something like can I just put an async function in here just for fun? Something like const component equals lazy. I think is it. Do I want to do a lazy import here directly? Can I just import node dot app get attribute URL? So something like await, and then hydrate component node render ID node dot get attribute ID. I mean, I my gut is this is not going to work. But I think this is basically it, right? Like dynamic imports cannot be analyzed by Vite. That's fine, I guess. Does that mean it just won't work at all? I guess because it can't resolve the model specifier. I wonder if I mean, it's not as simple as putting a slash in front of it, right? I'm in dev mode, which is probably okay. Yeah, okay. Let me explain a little bit. We didn't get there. We showed that we could definitely hydrate, do partial hydration because we didn't hydrate the whole document, but the missing pieces don't quite work yet. Like ideally, all you would need to do is grab all the islands and then import the code for them and then call hydrate on them. And then on the server, similarly, you would output the island format, set the hydration ID to whatever ID generation, whatever approach you want to do, and then render the component. And the whole using lazy thing, I realized we don't instruct outside of hydration. Like we don't instruct the client to load the code. So like we already showed a place where we skipped not only the IDs but not sending the JavaScript for app. But with this, you can see that like perceptually, what would happen is um, we could easily go into here and just import the specific modules. And the trick to this is something that I haven't been showing off too much. Render to stream takes a manifest, and I've chosen to use Beats manifest format here because it's like our 99% case. But essentially, we can get the doesn't matter, works will roll up to or whatever. Like as long as we can get the manifest in the Beat manifest format, essentially, we pass that into render to stream, and it's really important for two things. First of all, you won't have to worry about this because any meta framework you use will do this automatically for you. But what it does is it gives us the URLs for the build assets on the server. And what we actually do, we look for lazy imports and we create a key base on the import thing that we use to look up against the manifest to find the actual the Beat plugin does this to look up the actual asset. And this is super powerful for a couple of reasons. First of all, it gives us that module URL. So like I need to figure out how to do this part, admittedly, but essentially because it gives us the module URL, and like I think this might even work in dev and prod, to be fair. It's just in dev that it doesn't know how to import. There's probably like a Beat helper that's like Beat resolve URL or something. Because we have the module URL, obviously it's very easy for us to communicate this to the client. That's what I was doing here. I was just like sending this through, grabbing the module URL to send it to the client so we can serialize it. But we can do this automatically also inside our streams and stuff. So before, Solid had this kind of real awkward double hydration thing where like lazy only almost acted like a suspense boundary. It hydrated separately. Like it'd start hydrating a boundary and then it would like pause on lazy and then continue. And this would cause weird hydration issues like portal sibling of blah, blah, blah. And it's frustrating to deal with. I mean, portals are awkward in their own sense, but like we'd have like this kind of start stop hydration within the same sync boundary, which sucked. So by making the manifest mandatory, we can do a couple things. First of all, we don't need the meta framework like solid start to generate the preload tags, because now every time we hit lazy while we're server rendering, we send a message to the client to say, hey, you're going to need this bundle. So the client, like we basically, if it's before first flush, we automatically add the preload tags right in the head, automatically done, easy. And we can do this not just for JS, we can do this for CSS, for whatever module assets related to the route that you're going to, right? It's specific to the route you're going to. The second piece here is that because the server knows through this discovery process, we can control things in a more controlled manner. Like we can tell suspense, like before the server was like, look, I have all the data I need for suspense to hydrate. So I'm going to say, go ahead. And then it triggers a promise over the wire, and then we start client hydrating. But now, because there's this second like assets I need for hydration mechanism in place, the server can go, I'm good, but the client can go, I haven't loaded this lazy component yet that I know I need to hydrate. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer before I hydrate, which means that we don't get the two-stage hydration for lazy. We do the whole boundary together synchronously, which removes a lot of fragility in our hydration approach, because it knows ahead of time always what code it needs to for the whole block to hydrate. It also does cool stuff like this, because we can register the assets. We can choose not to, you know how streaming you kind of flush in the boundaries like we were showing earlier. We can choose, even before the framework is loaded on the page, we can choose not to swap in the server rendered stuff. Like basically we can render the outline, and then usually it kind of like streams out of order in. We can hold it so it doesn't stream the out of order content until the CSS for that section has loaded, which means that we can remove flash of unstyled content automatically on server rendered streamed content. So because we have the manifest, we can basically render into the page like, hey, I'm going to need the CSS, and then use onload triggers to be like, okay, yeah, all my assets are good. Now you can swap in the content. This is again, we generally speaking, because the way loading or suspense kind of same mechanism works, that we render eagerly, we're going to discover these assets like synchronously, almost immediately, and most of them are going to be discovered before that first flush and just go into the head the way you expect, and then everything will be good. But late discovered assets on streaming boundaries, as I said, can still hold the flushing, and the end result is basically we won't be showing you any part of the page before the CSS for it is ready, even on initial streaming. After the fact, navigation is fairly easy to do, but on initial streaming, this has always been a challenge. So the combination of synchronous hydration boundaries, the ability to kind of hold until assets are ready so that we get consistent views, and the this module URL ability to basically be able to like very easily create sort of sub areas, hydrations, micro front end type little blocks are all a superpower that comes from being able to pass the manifest into rendering on the server. Could you share a link? No, no, no. Okay. Yeah, no, no. Yeah, I mean, I can quickly show you the code, I suppose. Let me GitHub. It is a Vite thing because we use Vite. Sorry, let me switch to next. We use uh I did make a placeholder for Solid Legacy. That's good to know. Forgot that I did that. Um, what was I gonna say? Where is this? This is gonna be under lazy, which is under source client. It should be under components actually. Oh, I guess it only comes. Yeah, yeah. The server part is actually the more interesting part, not the client part, right? The answer is actually, if there is a bug, we're actually going to be able to see this pretty easily right now, actually, because lazy. I think this is actually just beats. So what we do here is, if you look at the signature for lazy, there's the promise thing, but then there's a module URL. So we could like specify it ourselves, but what happens is the Vite plugin compiles in the URL, and then this module URL just, I think the mistake here is we just did this when really what we're supposed to do here is do the lookup in here. When we do the register assets thing, see it's registering some style assets, some module assets. When we do this, we should be able to do a lookup against the manifest. This was my mistake. I just passed the URL straight through. What should have happened is this should have done a lookup through the manifest to figure out what the actual, not the key is here, but what the actual resolve manifest URL is, and then we just tag it on. But the key part of this is I use the Vite plugin to compile our lazy thing, our lazy helpers. This is a trick that they use in Vue or sort of Nuxt and in a few other libraries. This does add like a bit of a layer of compilation that I'm like not like the most stoked about, but what this is the beginning of what I consider the next phase of things, which is like bundler awareness in JavaScript frameworks. You kind of like on the SSR side, it's almost essential. But uh, yeah, that's the gist of it. If we had a unified that could stream to the JS, would that make it? Probably not. The problem with hydration is it's just like an intrinsically difficult problem because of the whole need of matching stuff up. It doesn't really matter the format, the transport, or whatever. No asset deduplication. There's some amount. It's the register assets will dedupe at least on the URL for these ones. These ones are all ambient, so we don't have to do any like additions or removals. This is not like our built-in solution for say like meta tags. This is purely for like preloading type considerations. Like they're all like basically, yeah. Yeah, the transform is in the Vite plugin. So yeah, it means that to, as of Solid 2.10 beta, Vite will be the only supported SSR target out the gate. We're going to have to make an updated plugin for Rollup or for Webpack or TurboPack or whatever. Which again, I don't like very much because, but if you look at it, it's kind of par for the course. What I mean by that is like, you know how there's that RSC Webpack and it took like 2 years for a Vite version to come along. It's because of needing to do stuff like this. It's not impossible to do, but who's going to spend the time to do the thing? It's actually not even that hard to do. Like the roll up version is like I have a working version of rollup in the solid repo. So like we could generalize that. Like I'm not worried about that. Webpack is probably going to be a pain, but like who cares about Webpack? Um, except for like like so I'm okay with that for now. Luckily, Vita is just so good and so popular that I don't think this will bite us for a little while. And we can just build the custom thing because not everyone's an SSR user. So yeah, custom SSR has never been easy. It's not with Solid. Custom SSR is hard with literally every JavaScript framework once you move past like render to string. Like, yeah, I mean, this is like the main reason meta frameworks exist. But the thing is, we can boil this down to a template, like a Vite template, rather than a meta framework. That's my opinion. Anyway, yeah, I mean, we definitely found some broken stuff. I don't know if we broke Solid 2.0, but we definitely found some broken stuff. Good note to myself, I guess at least. But um, yeah, I just wanted to kind of go along on this path because we're talking about like some really powerful capabilities built in a very primitive way that it's generic. Like if you make lazy bundler aware, then exporting that capability, like saying what the URL is, it makes 100% sense, and it opens up really powerful patterns. If you yeah, I mean, the funny thing is we could probably get the island solution working if we looked to see what the manifest has and then hard coded it into the lazy as a second argument. Um, yeah, I don't know how robust my transform is right now, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Um, yeah, it's really hard. I mean, the challenge here is like it's the mechanics that are hard. Because you're matching two things up. We already we already to gate the like actual like we let you write the app one way and it runs on both sides. That isomorphism is already the API layer handle. But what like if you didn't have this declarative template approach, state approach on both sides, then like wiring this would be really a pain, right? Because you'd be like, okay, now I have my HTML template, and then like now I need to like duplicate it maybe as a JS template, or like maybe I don't use JS templates. Like some people there's some like solutions where you're like, okay, well if I maybe I just like write both systems in, like I'll use like a ERB, like a server templating language, and then I'll like put HTML tags that have my like client side logic is attribute strings like we used to do like 15 years ago like with knockout you could think of different ways to manually wire that. You could write like your code one way and then have like some like imperative client side stuff like stimulus does. Like basically look at everything that's not a front-end JavaScript framework on how it handles hydration. They don't call it hydration, but it is hydration effectively. Like there's a reason like these patterns exist. It is sometimes funny though. Like I think it's important to like step back and go like, okay, can I do this a different way? And because a lot of these things have been tried before. It's just like when I first saw Alpine JS, I was just like, huh, this is like knockout again. Like it is more tailored to hydration slightly, but it's like we've seen this before. We know. Like my first assumption is we know that this doesn't work, but we should be careful not to jump too far to conclusions because sometimes like the physics can change like in a certain way that actually changes the math. But yeah, not to worry you, but I console log manifest and it's an empty object. Yeah, I mean that would be the start of our problem, right? Actually, yeah, let's that I didn't even think of doing. It should show up on the server logs, right? So let's close this down and back here just so I can do it easier. Is it because it's like is it like a proxy? Yeah, it's showing an empty object. That's hilarious. How about let's try something like this. Object dot keys manifest. I mean that would also be one of the issues. Nope, no keys. Okay, yeah, empty object. There you go. Yeah, we are on the server here though, which is the funny part. It should work in dev mode. I think this is something to look into. The funny thing is, it's a funny thing is about this is that like, is it because I don't like no we render home here, don't we? Like yeah, I mean we wouldn't be seeing it. Yeah, I mean this is something that's going to require a little bit further exploration, definitely. Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, there's a lot of history in this, and actually, let's switch to this week in JavaScript so we can talk about some of this, um, because it is actually relevant to some of the conversations. We've been generally, sorry, now I'm just gonna swap my camera here for 2 seconds while I'm talking. We've generally been circling around the same sort of solution space for decades. Um, this is not new, you know, like the web's been around since the mid 90s. We've hit walls, you know, being server only, client only, whatever. We've done this circle multiple times. And for that reason, like most ideas or things have been tried at least in some form before. You have to recognize when the ergonomics change or when the physics change or when like other exterior forces change. But generally speaking, uh, if you've been around for a while, you've seen most things. And I think that like yeah, I mean that's a bit where the challenge here kind of comes in because it's hard not to discount ideas that have been tried before. Like maybe it'll be different this time, but it's like there's definitely this tension. Like, and it comes from all sides, right? Like the people who are not fans of single page apps, like are were burnt maybe by React 2015, right? And maybe you're still getting burned up for all I know. The people who are like, yeah, you can keep your HTMX, like maybe they used .NET update panels in 2006, right? Um, Kind of the same thing. HTMX is lighter weight, but like the my problem was never like it wasn't so much like you could find ways to make it less heavy. But my problem was like the architecture didn't make sense for what I needed to do. Hey, oh, okay. Do we have a yeah? So, so let's. I think I'm in an okay place. I didn't actually bookmark that much stuff this week, um, so let's let's take a look here. So, Oh, damn it! Closed one of my tabs. Give me 2 seconds. When did I stream last? It was like February 26th or something. Right. Sorry, kind of get distracted a bit when I was talking. Yeah, 27th. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna switch over. I still have this banner, so let's go. This has been kind of like a crazy week. I didn't actually bookmark a lot of the stuff going on. A lot of realizations for myself, obviously around AI, and a lot of like craziness if you look at like the wider political landscape with what's happening with Anthropic and the US government. Honestly, on one hand, I don't want to pay too much attention, waste too much time worrying about like the like back and forth there, but like the bigger questions being asked are actually really interesting and they're all kind of related. I talked about this earlier. I showed this quote about like what I thought the future of engineering looks like, but the one thing that is also common in other engineering disciplines is that things are not just highly specified, but basically every piece is like uh, heavily standardized and like like you have permits for things. You have like there's a lot of process and red tape to ensure safety and security are reached on what you build. You need to have accountability, and it's not going to fly when someone goes, "Oh yeah, this did something terrible," but the AI wrote it, you know. So the idea of extending accountability through orchestration is really important, and what it's going to come down to ultimately is both safeguards and things built into the tools themselves, and the our ability to be trained and to basically have standards on which how we conduct ourselves um, while interfacing with these tools. So I think software has had kind of like a free pass for a while, and I think no longer. What that actually means is going to take a bit of time to figure out. But like, there's just too much capability and potential now, you know, that's unlocked by this level of automation. You know, like there's a reason that, you know, if there's like a local, if there's a need for a bridge over a river, like it's not like your neighbors probably built it. They you know, someone designed it, someone approved the design, it passed it through all the municipal guidelines. Professional builders were hired to build it. You know, like there's a whole process in ensuring that that bridge, you know, won't collapse because someone has to be accountable. And I think software is going to try at least to mimic something there. The situation is different, but there's definitely a need there. So when I read deeper into the whole spectrum of like, you know, whether that's, you know, using AI to spy on or automate killing of people, um, like this all should be under a specific constraint and restrictions that are actually set by the development of software in general within any like guidance or governance of you know, lawful organizations that you would follow, you know what I mean, like, or that you'd be a part of by whatever where you live or whatever governs you. I think I think um like something clearly has to change. Anyway, that's me just talking the cloud. Obviously, Solid 2.0 beta was released. We talked about some of the heavy duty stuff here. We talked about some of the big ideas earlier. Um, I don't know if these examples showcase it in the complete light, but um, and especially I know this is something people are not excited about. The end result is something quite powerful, as we went over at the beginning of the stream. The it's the culmination of all this stuff and what it means for the future that makes this so incredibly exciting. Um, Look through the RFCs if you want some ideas. We're using these to generate new docs, but it's obviously difficult, as you've already seen. There's a difference between describing what each option and each function does and understanding that how these pieces play together can lead to crazy combinatorics in terms of capability. I think coding and expressing that and leading people to showing that is something that we're going to need help on for years to come because this foundation is something else. Oh, if I add lazy to the client, was that what I was missing? I thought I needed to, but I got hijacked a bit. Like just like do it right here. What I do that? I do like lazy. Um, Import. Sorry, this got me excited again for a second. I was so freaking close. Oh, thank you. We did it. Sorry, it's so funny if you stopped watching earlier. We actually did it. We created. No, it just as a baseline. We have several people working on docs. The problem is the biggest challenge is that it's hard to take what's in my head and structure it into something that is useful for people. Um, Nice. Time to call Cloudflare. Yeah, yeah. There we go. Islands framework. Yeah, I should have known that. Oh man, this makes me so happy. One of our crazy idea demos actually worked. Let's vet this in the other window. Sorry, this I gave up too soon. I gave up like right before the last step. Um, so we don't actually need the modular ID. That's interesting. Let me see. Yeah. So the reason the URL looks like that is because of dev mode. Interesting. I think. So the home component is here. Let's see what happens to entry client. Looks fine. Yeah, if you look at this, we never send the JavaScript for anything but the I mean it's the hot refresh stuff, but we never send the JavaScript for anything but the home component. So like this is working islands, you know? Obviously we need a unique ID because the way I but like that could be any number of things, right? Because the client will match whatever. It could be just like a counter, like literally a server side counter, because it only needs to last the life of the request. We could let's see here. We could do um, let's remove the banner here and just make it like that. And then just to completely sanity check this for myself here, we're going to add two separate islands. It's going to use the same component, but we'll call this one app2. Doesn't really matter. And then when we refresh this, we have two separately hydratable islands, island 1 and island 2. And if we want to get real fancy, we can be like, in between them, we can be like, on the server. It looks like this approach doesn't really work great with HMR, but you see the on the server there. All right. Something worked today. Yay. My approach was not off. All right. That makes me thank you, Damien. That makes me really happy. Count on turn app. Yeah, okay. Uh yeah, and I guess so. I'm I mean, we would need to be able to parse server components are a whole other thing. We need to be able to parse the markup into like a diffable format. But that for another time. I mean, technically the primitives probably support it, right? The incremental streams from the server and stuff. Like we have the serializer, we have all the pieces. We just need to build the right abstraction on top. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. I mean, I mean, this is not great UX, and you'd have to figure out how to do like nested projection. Like we're not serializing props yet. You'd have to use shared config. Like maybe we should expose that as like a helper rather than running it off shared config. Like right now, home has no props. We'd have to add that. That could be like the next step. If I didn't get so stuck on the earlier stuff, I would have started prop serialization as part of this mechanism. But the it is kind of funny API because I mean you could pretend that this was like obscured away from you, so it could be possible that it's like the dynamic API where you could just like name your island. Let's say I mean you could obviously generate it and like this could what this could do is we could do something like let island counter equals um 0, let's say, and then we can do something like what are we gonna call this? I plus that, I plus that. Oh, right. And then we could, yeah, exactly. We can just be like island counter plus plus. Actually, why don't we just say const ID equals I plus island counter plus plus, and then we just pass this straight in. ID, ID, something silly like, I mean, there's different ways to do it, but I think then we remove this. It becomes just like dynamic. You'd pass the, maybe like we do something where you could pass the props to the island. Like this is just a different API, obviously. There's no use client or any garbage like this, but I think this should still work. Yeah, it still works. So yeah, now we hid the ID away. So now, yeah, I mean, whatever. You get the idea. Um, SSR, SSR, what do we want to call this example? Ghetto, no, let's, simple islands. All right, all that. Yeah. I mean, the key is that you'd have to you'd also have to know, like, these are all things that like the use client or like the bundler does for you, where it like automatically does the module splitting. It automatically like it is funny though that we can basically reproduce the mechanism without a special compiler here. I think that's the bigger takeaway, is that we were able to do this just using the primitives without writing a compiler, like a special, like there is a bundler compiler here technically, the one that we're using v plugin to get these URLs and stuff and do this and getting the manifest and doing all that. So there is a compiler, but it's a generic purpose compiler. We didn't need to write a special compiler for this special use case. Okay. Thank you. This just makes me happy that something did actually works. Okay, cool. We did it. Gave up too soon. Where was I? Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, and then we're already caught up in stream. So not much on my own timeline. Bookmarks, we talk about this in a minute. Let's see SolidJS if anything interesting on the timeline. Wasn't an option for templates, but now it is. Better full stack support solid structure capable with all tools, combine solid server with salty atoms, Alicia.js, and dozens of other libraries. Cool. I guess this is one of those like stack blitz type places. That's nice. This month in solid. As I said, I didn't do too much here. This is an ad, right? There's no way yeah. They're making these things like much, like it says ad here, but they're really trying to make this like seamless. There used to be more noticeable the difference. Okay. So that just leaves my bookmark. I just want to check Blue Sky real quick right here to see if I had anything else, but I don't, my memory is not that I did. Bookmarks. Yeah, we talked all about vNext last week. And web components. No one wants to talk about web components anymore. At least of all me. I want to cover this. I'm only going to do this because I am going to have Mr. Data Star on my stream in the future. We haven't booked a time yet, and I've been very sidetracked. But I think this is important, and maybe this is something that'll be valuable to other framework authors, my perspective on this, because I've been here. I don't know if you guys remember, I was trying to promote Marco pretty hard about 5 or 6 years ago, because it was really good at the problem that it solved, like insanely good at it. And people just didn't get it. Astro helped them get it, I guess, or a certain number of people. But like Marco had been doing this for like a decade before, and like completely lost on people because they'd open up Marco and then they'd be like, okay, so yeah, let's get started. What's your state library? Do you got something like Redux? I'm like, no, you don't really need a state library. What? Oh, okay, yeah, okay, we'll see about that. Let's move on. Okay, so what router? No, you don't really need a router. And at that point, the person's just like, okay, this can't do what I want it to do, and they just kind of gave up. And I mean, I even saw this to a microcosm when people first saw like Remix 1, 2. They'd be like, this model isn't very capable. They're like all these like big loaders and using forms and stuff. How do I do like more granular stuff? How do I do like the React query kind of thing? And Ryan's like, well, you just do it. And they're like, what? No, but like, it's, he had to actually show them how to do stuff more granularly. That being said, granted, it wasn't as granular as you can get. There's definitely a wall there. For most people complaining, they weren't hitting it, right? So hypermedia HTMX probably hits a similar wall. Most people on that side don't care because why do they need to convince single page app people of anything? Because they're just like, screw all that BS, render HTML at the end, right? And that works pretty well, most sites probably are sites, so that's all you need, and move on. And both ships kind of pass each other. Datastar is an interesting framework if you guys aren't familiar with it, in that it combines hypermedia with signals. And what started this conversation, I want to talk about a little bit, and as I said, we'll have Delaney on in the future, is that there's this post about SPA versus hypermedia, real world performance under load. Fair enough. Um, the gist of the thing is they compared something, a chatbot created in PHP Swool Datastar against the Vercel AI SDK chatbot built with Next.js. Now, I don't need to tell anyone on the stream. I mean, you don't need to read the article. You guys already know the results from this. I mean, Next basically gets clobbered at literally every metric that they could come up with. Oh yeah, yeah. That's funny. AI generated the cover, and Dave saw it, and he was like, "Man, that logo is good." He's the guy, community manager, who actually like, you know, designed the solid assets and stuff, and or his team did. So yeah, I mean, something like that might be in the works. I think it's pretty sweet. Um, yeah. Oh, I see. Shadowban slash. Yeah, I pay for X, so I never notice. Because I have the little verified stamp. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's like literally every metric you could possibly come up with, except for the amount of HTML, which makes sense. It's like it just. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, your LCP is 8 seconds versus 1 second right off the bat tells you that something is not going right here. But like, yeah, I mean, like, I mean, there's just like, I mean, no one expected anything different. I think material like this is useful to be out in the world though, because a lot of people are choosing to use client side centric frameworks when their problem doesn't merit it. Um, but I mean, this is a pretty good endorsement for using something like Datastar, right? Like And it's like, 28, right? Like, why aren't people shouting from the rooftops about this? And I, I saw it and I was like, we had Taylor on a few years ago, but how I built the fastest website and other mistakes. There's a whole stream on this. Great stream, honestly. I think people on this kind of side of things, let's see if I can find it, would definitely find interest in this stream. There's a guy pushing the rock up the hill. It was quite a while ago. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, stream 3 years ago. This is not one of my most watched streams. It's criminally underwatched, but I'm gonna post the stream and I'll post the article too because it's a whole article series. And he basically did the thing that you'd expect. He made it. The reason I bring this up is because when I was talking to Delaney here, you're going to cover data numbers for disposal in one of your streams. As much as I hate to say it, you need to compete against a better competitor. It's going up against Next.js is like shooting fish in a barrel, even in front end circles. I think your example also needs to be simple enough that one can contest it. No one can contest it yet. Play to the competitor's wheelhouse. These things only have weight if the competitor recognizes the scenario, which usually means you have to play to their strengths. In the early days of Solid, I put it up against DOM diffing scenarios because that was Solid's worst case and React's arguably best case. The real problem is that if people can't carry the performance context in their head, all these things fall apart. Like Quick is incredibly good at hydration, never came up with the right demo or benchmark to show off their performance. The problem is that no one cares about performance differences between Next and literally anything else in the front end world. You are going to have a hard time getting the right attention. Generally use their own benchmarks against them, which I imagine is hard though, because it isn't apples to apples. Hypermedia's concern has never been performance. It's that people don't believe it's capable of scaling with interaction complexity in an ergonomic way. I know you believe you can prove that wrong. Honestly, the biggest obstacle here is similar to what Marco faced when first trying to push MPAs. The paradigm is different. Enough people don't see it. I think you got to just keep showing it. I'm definitely interested in having you on stream, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So he's like, any specific solid startups, fair comparison. And that's where you hit it. No one's been testing benchmarking end to end. The examples are generally trivial, like Hacker News. I was writing a plan for a future benchmark, but I got sidetracked working on 2.0. The quick folks might be the best to look at because I was working with Misco to try and make that perfect demo, and we never actually accomplished it. He had something very close. We just need to streamline it. I have an idea of the characteristics of it. We need a situation that's simple like Hacker News, but has client-side routing, at least no full page reload, and shared client state between pages. It needs to capture the situation which causes client-side solutions to serialize hydration data and depends on that data for future potential server page updates in a way that isn't easily escapable. This criteria generally will break most island frameworks and reveal real, true overhead resumable solutions and tends to put RCs and single-page apps on more even playing ground. In that world, I think there's a comparison to be made, assuming there's no persistent server stuff, like no live view, no WebSockets, because like that's just sidestepping it. That's a different type of solution that can't be compared directly. Been vocal, roll with it, blah blah blah. But I can see that something that is match real world. Yeah, okay. So he basically called the JS framework benchmark not real world, which is fair, but it's also, it depends on what you want to test, right? Because I defended it because I think out of most benchmarks I've seen over time, it's one of the better ones. It's not testing your app, it's testing heavy table workflow. It's the benchmark for people who build dashboards, like interactive dashboards. It's the thing that AG Grid should look at when deciding what framework to use. Like Tansac table, it's not a like an app, right? But I said, so I think client-side benchmarks have their place, but this isn't something that is going to specifically show off what you need it to. If Datastar was in Crossits, it would only be testing the signal part and not the hypermedia part, right? Which is fair. So I understand why they're not in there. Even on the signals fronts, we'd be at the top. That's a bold claim. Okay. But bigger issues, you leading signals a ton, you've already lost. Okay. I don't see yeah. Whenever someone tells me their thing is fast, I'm always like, prove it. Like, so we can move on from there because it's like, I'm like it's just saying you're the fastest and then not submitting it because you don't want to play their game, I mean, that's a choice, but it also means that like no one's going to recognize you for that aspect. And it's fine. Maybe you think the premise is wrong. As I said, we hit this issue with Marco because MPAs don't have state management. Like Marco's in that test but it's not testing the whole solution. It's literally just testing the client side part. But it's kind of interesting because this is where the conflict kind of comes in, and this is the only reason why I want to highlight this, because I think it's interesting because I've been on both sides of this argument. Oh yeah, the design demo we talked with Solenoid is technically hypermedia with signals looking to data store. Yeah, I was planning to migrate Solenoid to use solid signal premise so you can toggle visibility and hydration per component. Oh, that's interesting. Last time I checked their top end signals because they don't have dynamic depths. Are there? Right, exactly. Which is like basically useless. Which is fine. I mean, there's people who kind of game on the other side too, but that the signals updates aren't actually going to influence the JS framework benchmark. Being the top of like some like deep, mostly pointless like reactivity test is not the JS framework benchmark. That's even more removed from reality. That's what I'm saying. Just throw it in the JS framework benchmark. But I understand we don't. Like Quick was hesitant too. They didn't want to show it in the JS framework benchmark because Quick is basically like somewhere between Preact and React. It makes them look. It's like if you're people will see it and be like, okay, so they aren't actually that fast. Like it's because it's not what it's built for. So there's like there's this awkward tension. So it's like how do you come up with the demo? I think similar to how fast can I buy eggs covered by yeah. So he's saying his perfect scenario is like the race to buy eggs, right? Which is the reason I brought that up is because that is exactly what this article is about. He built something in Marco versus something built in React. Absolutely, this is for Kroger, the grocery store. Absolutely, just destroyed them on the eggs test. He talks about streaming. He talks about everything, and at some point, there's like he. I forget if it's in the articles or when he like he did it, but like you can instantly see the difference in experience with streaming. He basically did the whole like egg test and like routing. I'm not smart enough for spa. All this stuff. In the end, they just didn't take it. He was a contractor, but essentially he the I had him on stream simply because of the balls he had. He came into a room with execs trying to make this decision and like architects, and he handed them phones that they sold in the store themselves, low end phones that Kroger's shipped. It looks like they even have their own OS on it, and it's like, okay, guys, here's our app on phones we sell, and here's my app on phones we sell. Go. This is such a like, and he actually took a video of here's our egg buying demo essentially, right? So this is his version, and this is the actual Kroger. This is the native app. This is Amazon and Walmart. He's almost done here. 20 seconds. There we go. How are we doing? Amazon actually is pretty good. I think Amazon ends up being about 80 seconds. But was he wearing flip-flops in a bathroom? I said the stream is worth watching. It's truly fascinating. I know Taylor because he worked. He was like the really helpful guy in the Discord chat originally on Marco. He just knew everything about streaming and HL uh, protocol, and then he actually was hired to eBay work on the Marco team for a while, right as I was leaving. Actually, yeah. Okay, so a minute on Amazon. That's respectable. Obviously, this site is like lighter weight. It's maybe doesn't have all the features, the one they built, but the thing is like Yeah, no one criticized Amazon. Amazon is pretty, okay, how do we get here? Their native app was a minute and 20. Still on the website here. And Walmart, another notorious React website. I mean, you have to understand the reason it's so slow is the devices are absolute garbage that they're doing this on. Did they just give up? Um, okay, it looks like I see eggs in the cart. Anyways, yeah, I don't know if anyone's done something updated. As I said, this was an old website and production website. I'm sure people could do better than the actual real production websites. Like you have to take this with a grain of salt because like this is something you made. But the ones he was trying to target was this one. He's like, look, this is what needs to be replaced. It's still not done yet. I think he has to cut the video before he successfully buys the eggs. I'm Anyway. It's difficult because this is not how tech demos often sell things. Right. I mentioned Taylor's article here. State of things is weird because you shouldn't need something like Next to make 80% of websites, maybe 90%. But personally, I only really focus on the last 10%. That's where these framers come from, people who want to put farther left. That's fine. I'd rather put that number higher on sites that don't need any of this. Sure. Let's say it's 98%. What you are fighting with is a mental model discrepancy. We have two things, a client and a server. People like to think they have one thing in an app. Everything extends from that. If something can give the appearance of one thing, they don't want to go back from it. Right. This conversation continues on for a bit. Someone else was like, what demo would you do? Would it be hacker news? No. Um, but I was like, if you benchmark what I suggested earlier, if you just want to make a demo to convince spa people that they should use um, hypermedia, I said remake the remixes Trellix demo. I know someone actually used hypermedia to make a Trello demo. I saw it. It just was not as good as this, and I can't picture writing that code. Like it was. It's kind of like when you like it's kind of like when I saw Crank.js. I love the concept of it. Then I looked at To Do MVC and I'm like, yeah, no, not for me. And when I saw HTMX doing a Trello demo, I was like, the point was we were supposed to be impressed that you could do it with HTMX. And in a sense, yeah, I mean, that is impressive. But it being worse and also not being something you'd like to write basically discounted it right away. I'm not going to make verbatim version of optimistic updates as actively lying to users and need to die as a concept. Okay. I mean, that's where we're at. Whether we're talking offline first, sync engines, these optimistic affordances. If we want to talk SPA, this is where things are. You can fundamentally disagree with it, but that's how Marco couldn't convince people they didn't need a client-side router. You have the same sort of challenge. Then what do we got? Who's expecting Trello offline? That's very win, blah, 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 optimistic. Yeah, and now you see RDDs, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they went off on a tangent here. I was like, okay, how about something simpler? How about like my async to-dos example with affordances? My affordances are crap, but this just is a rough proof of concept. That being said, I just find Illustrator, I don't know front end cares that much, but it lament to the loss of convincing tech demos, blah, blah, blah. Clear doesn't target front end devs, it targets people who think holistically about the problem. I think it depends on what you're building. There's definitely technical consideration here. This is why he's going to be great to have on stream. Some of the misalignment between suitable solution problem could be cultural, but not the existence of a class solution. When I see what most people build with SPA Paradigm, they much better served with hypermedia or native app. Sure. And that's again, there's this similarity when you're on one of the extremes with a solution, flanking the other provider with something better on the other side is one of the best strategies. This is why I was so stoked about Marco, because I thought I could use Marco to sandwich like Next.js and React. because Solid was arguably better on the app side and Marco is better on the site side, basically removing all the air in the room for Next.js and React. The challenge here with flanking on this was that mobile is obviously a different platform, so you're not going to be able to chase everyone completely off the web. It's challenging here is it's difficult to convince or emphasize with a user that sits in a space that you think has no business existing. Yeah, I forget where the exact quote was, but he said somewhere up in the chain here that basically there is no point to have spas. I guess it was just here. Yeah. So yeah, I get the perspective. I think the challenge here, and the only reason I wanted to bring up this conversation because I thought it was interesting, is it's not always the most obvious thing that is going to be able to get the right attention to kind of like promote like performance. You think would be enough, but a lot of people don't care about performance. They care, but only when it hurts them. So it's like there's this tension here that everything around wants to pull you where they're at. I wasted a lot of time, you could argue, chasing React in that sense. But on the other hand, if you don't meet people or meet things where they're at, you're not going to win that audience. You don't have to. I think Datastar can basically ignore React and move on. The problem is because of the signals part, because of the part, there's always going to be that side of people who are just like, yeah, this isn't going to be enough for me, right? If you want to prove that it's capable, then you almost have no choice but to build something that is on that far side. Because if you don't, and I mean, you get this point where people will be like, okay, well, no JS framework benchmark. I guess it's not fast on the client. No, and this is just for the specific view. You don't have to cater to these people, but and then they're like, oh, no optimistic updates. I guess you can't do that either. Like people are just going to assume that you can't. Like I have a hard enough time convincing people that we can when we have features released for like 5 years, like mobile. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you convince people that you can when you know what I mean? Like, so this is one of those this is one of those kind of like challenging things on the framework space, because if you're fundamentally misaligned with the perspective of where the audience are today, you're going to have a hard time. Some people can call you ahead of your time or whatnot, but it's going to be difficult. And maybe it all takes is time, but then you have to be okay with that. Wanting to build something like a native app is the basic motivation for Spa because of the ease of distribution. Yeah, ease of distribution. And if you look at the trends here, we're trying to get as much immediacy on interaction as possible. So whether that's optimistic UIs, sync engines, all these things. I mean, distributed system problems are difficult. We all know that. But the trend on front end, which again you can choose not to care about, is trying to make things as immediate as possible. So yeah, like a mobile app, arguably, right? The funny thing is, there's a time period where everything became an app for me, but I've kind of gone back to using a lot of websites because I try to not do stuff on my phone. So for me, I actually like web apps quite a lot. I'm deciding with both of you. I know Carson from HTML will concede the client side for certain use cases. Yeah. Delaney sometimes comes off a little bit even hardcore than that. I'd love to have Carson too at some point. If I just need to get in the right mind space. I'm so deep down reactivity lane right now that it's just like I don't know if I'm like in the right space. Yeah, I mean that's arguable, right? So like I mean this is a spectrum. It's not like a single point in time. Yeah, I've struggled to just flaky and don't want to learn. Yep. I mean, And they're really because of that, they're really sensitive to the weirdest thing. Like I'm giving Davis Star a big shout out here and a lot of screen time, more than because I think it's worth talking about right here, right? He's got a fucking ton of examples, like simple examples. I think some of the challenges here, and I'll probably talk to him more about the stream, is when I look at this file, I get what it's doing, right? It's a search component. It's an input field that says on this do this, right? So basically data bind search, data on input debounce, blah blah blah, hit this URL, and then draw them. But like this is a good way of like showing simplicity. Oh, to do MVC, there we go. Because I'm not looking at this, like what is this? I feel like I'm missing part of the story. I think this is one of the challenges for spot people. But what I'm saying is there is a lot of stuff here. Obviously, people have to learn data on, data bind, all the specific syntaxes around the attributes. But you know, that might be simpler than understanding like certain types of concepts. Um, yeah, this takes a bigger shift in mentality, arguably even bigger than Marco. Lazy tabs. These demos are all interactive, which is absolutely great. Get example lazy tabs. Yeah, I think the problem is I'm like, where's the tab? Roll. Yeah. Anyway. I think the challenge for this is when you add stuff like signals to partials, you need to show the story of when the state persisted. There is a fringe resolution where push out the value to stack, not to creating value. I like that. You can create more value, choose a simpler and performance solution. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the latest. It's it, there was an article like a week ago or so where someone was like talking about that, and I was just like, have any reason you want to about React, better choice, but like this is the laziest reason. Is it type safe at least? Like 10 stack router. But that's an us concern. Why do you need type safety in your templating? Yeah, this is gonna be a difficult challenge. But maybe then it's like not the like maybe the framing's wrong, right? He's just making a type safe data star with OCaml right now. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I I go for it. You know. Um. Oh, DBmon, do they have the stock ticker? Can I get up to like 60 frames? These are cool demos because he's actually talking to the. What happened? What? This is pretty. We wanted a mutation rate of about. What do you want doing that? Mutation rate of about 50%, and we want a FPS of about 100 and 80. Just getting close to where I think Solid performs on this. I think this is what's impressive about this is I think he's talking to a backend to do this. I don't actually have no clue how this is working. Oh, I can't make it any faster. Well, whatever. Scientists at Ryan would approve. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there's so many ways we can take these things that we shouldn't like necessarily discount out an approach altogether. But I am saying like putting on like the spa glasses. I understand why this is a hard sell. Um, it's as I said, it's even harder sell than islands. People should get there eventually from their own frustration, but like how long do you wait for it eventually? And in that time, will other solutions shift? As I said, right now I am very happy to view the world like this. This is my unifying theory of everything. So if you have a solution that can literally handle all of this in a way that's removes the edge cases, you're in pretty good by my books. But maybe that's wrong view. Maybe we should only be focusing on the domains that matter to us so we can have more special purpose, more to the point tools. I don't know. It's hard to say. Anyway, I I think that is the gist of this week for me. I've got bugs to fix. I've got more work to do, clearly. So we'll just leave it like that. We don't need to go any longer today. So you can try 2.0 right now. I've shared some Stack Blitz templates when I was in the chat, but there's what was I gonna say? The maybe I'll drop the release announcement. You just go on the next tag. We release Solid 2.0 is beta, so you can try it. You can try it. Link again. There's actually beta 1 now, but I'm not gonna make release announcements for each version. You'll just see them in the repo. So yeah. All right. I think that's good. I'm gonna go have a good weekend to celebrate my son's birthday. So you all have a good one. Till next time. It'll be a few weeks, I think.